were once young people. It's a fact. I can call we a senior youth, some of us. But nevertheless, we are going to hear from the young people themselves. And here they are as our panelists. We have people both from Europe and Africa, both East, West, and Africa, even Europe. This is a mixture. Very good. For our engagement with them, they are helping us to change our perspectives. Many people always say, younger people are the leaders of tomorrow. That's not the reality. Younger people are leaders of today. Many younger people are doing amazing things. So for our discussion, we are going to look at how to empower younger people with disabilities. And of course, we are using a model, an approach, under Light for the World. We, as Light for the World, we walk the talk. We empower young people, yes, but how do we empower younger people in reality? First, of course, later we shall be able to share the personal perspectives from our colleagues. So just allow me to introduce, also to find out what approaches we are using. Please, if you have any question, at any moment, note it. There will be a moment for you to ask the speakers. By way of introduction, our young panelists, first, on my right is Olamide. Olamide is our colleague coming from Nigeria and one of our products, whom we refer to as a disability inclusion facilitator. Some of you might wonder, what do you mean by a disability inclusion facilitator? I'll just share with you the details later. In Nigeria, Olamide is supporting different organizations and companies by doing accessibility and also looking at mainstream organizations. Of course, later we shall listen from Lydia. Lydia is coming from the Netherlands and also working with the European Disability Forum. Lydia is an advocate and activist for the rights, especially at European level. Later, you'll be able to share with us what the nature of your work is. We shall also have Marianne. Marianne is coming from Kenya. Kenya is my immediate neighboring country. It's also very active in different areas, artificial intelligence, issue of communication, and also is a professional communication specialist. Those, our panelists in the room, they'll be able to share their perspectives later. Just as I said, as Light for the World, we work with younger people whom we refer to as DIF, Disability Inclusion Facilitators. This is a model where younger people with disabilities are trained to use their lived experience in changing the community where they live. Yes, younger people have lived experience because they have that disability, but how to use that lived experience to make changes in the community and also in a systematic way. That's the training we offer. What we do, we identify these younger people. They do have lived experience, and we capitalize to train them to become experts on how to influence processes, to influence organizations, and also look at an ecosystem, looking at the governance change. But how they even conduct training, of course, these are our disability inclusion facilitators. The question is always, why disability inclusion facilitators, we embrace younger people with disabilities? What are the reasons that disability inclusion facilitators should be younger people with disabilities? There are 3 reasons to this. We embrace the power of lived experience. Yes, young people, they grow up struggling in their communities. They are born, they go to school, how to access health services, they struggle all through. And through that, they gain that experience. What do we do to train them on how they can engage and influence systems using their lived experiences? Second reason is what we call ability in action. Yes, they are able to demonstrate that they are able. That they are able to work in different areas, rather than going and train theoretically and say, people with disabilities can do this. But at that moment, younger people are demonstrating by appearing, by presenting before the audience. And that immediately can change the mindset and systems of individuals. Another element is the self-advocacy. Yes, they talk about issues affecting them. Their voices are heard. They are able to change and influence systems and processes. How did the DIF approach came to emerge? It started in Uganda in the year 2018, and there was a general question. Young people were complaining there's high level of unemployment, they are not able to get jobs, they struggle, they are not included in livelihood programs. And we asked them, how can we solve such a problem? We were able to identify 6 younger people looking at different impairment, and they traveled the entire country to engage their fellow colleagues with disabilities, to interact with them, and they came up with a solution. And we used a social innovation lab approach where we sat together and we did a lot of prototypes. And 3 issues came up, and they realized where the point was coming. They say companies and organizations, we are willing to employ people with disabilities, but they are lacking the how bit of it. And another question came back with 6 younger people. So how can we solve that issue? That's why they say, can you train us on how we can go and influence systems and processes to work on that? That's how the DIF approach, Disability Inclusion Facilitator Model approach, came into existence. In the picture, I'm demonstrating the pioneer. Those are the pioneers of the DIF model. You know, they have gone through some career development. Others even have changed to be disability inclusion advisors. Others are specialists. Others are being employed in different sectors. You may wonder, what could be the role of a DIF? Of course, they have a number of roles, just as my colleague will be able to share with you later, or Amide will share. But some quick highlights. A DIF is a relationship builder. It's there to interest partners and also embrace inclusion. They are able to engage organizations to be disability inclusive. And of course, they create what we call agency in doing so. Many partners pick interest, and hence they get back to us to take them through that journey. In many countries where we are working, we have realized the DIFs influence many organizations. Even some of them are family members working in different agencies. They are working in different organizations. When we engage with them, that's when they can even realize, if you make a program inclusive, then this can work out. And hence, that's how the training also takes up in different ways. And even many young people with disabilities, they are there. Like Olamide, they when they engage organization, they can even testify. Organizations always pick up interest and later come back to them to take through their journey of being disability inclusive. Another role is being a role model. And also they do as an advisor. Take an example. There are a number of demonstrations they can do that we are able to work, and hence by so doing, it demonstrates that yes, they are able to do. And also act as a trainer. What we have learned is that disability inclusion is not a one-off activity. It's not a one-off activity. It's a process. You have to go there, time and again, engage with partners, even develop tools in making their programs inclusive. Lastly, the DIF also act as a broker, monitor, and a coach. Many partners, when we take them through the training, they always need to have some practical tools and resources. What does it mean? When a DIF go and pay a visit to the partner, they can identify what could be the gaps. Is it about the tools? The tools can be even tailored to that organization so that they can support them in their process of becoming disability inclusive. And hence, the DIF are always attached to such partners to support them in their journey of being inclusive. Also, the DIF help to create a career path for the general younger people with disabilities. Because some of them have background in ICT, even others do social work. But when you become a specialist in disability inclusion, so can even look at how we can make ICT accessible. Also, can become an expert in inclusive programming. So it also helps them to have a focus. In summary, we have our DIF end-to-end journey. A DIF is not a work for life for the world alone, but it's about working with the other partners, the organizations with personal disabilities, and even mainstream actors. Because organizations with personal disability are very key. When we work together, the partners pick interest to use the DIF approach, and they have been in touch with us, even the OPDs, different countries. We can agree and engage on how we can control the quality of the DIFs. And also there's a call for applications. Then we do the selections. We train them. We have a 5 days vigorous or theoretical training, plus 2 days thematic training. Then later, we undergo a fellowship between 4 to 6 months fellowship period. When they are done, we can assess them and certify them to become a certified disability inclusion facilitators where they can be contracted by organizations. And we have seen many organizations and partners embracing and make them being staff and others working as consultants. So that is about the DIF model in a snapshot. Of course, if you want to get more details, you can even go to the platform. We can work platform. There's a we can work platform. There are a lot of information on the DIF model. And that's where we're implementing We Can Work program. With those highlights about the DIF approach, may I invite my colleagues to share what is your personal perspective. Yes, Olamide. can you describe to us how accessibility or ICT matter in your work?
Okay, thank you very much. Accessibility is very important to my work and to me because it is seen as a major barrier. Because it's a major barrier when it comes to, when accessibility is lacking, it provides barriers. And when I'm talking physical accessibility, I'm talking communications, accessible communications. It provides, if I cannot communicate with the partners, or if the partners cannot communicate with me, then there's a problem. There's a barrier has been created. Now, according to my colleague, he said the work that we do is we go to talk to organizations and tell them, just to show them a representation of how we can work, of how persons with disabilities can work. And as a result of that, I need to be able to demonstrate the communications, how they can communicate with persons with disabilities, what are the things they need to put in place in order for them to be able to bring persons with disabilities on board. However, if there are no technologies like that, if we do not have assistive technologies like that available, then there would already be a barrier and they wouldn't be able to bring them on board. So for instance, I'm sure many partners will be willing, but because of the lack of accessibility, the lack of the right assistive tools, they're unable to actually bring people on board. So this serves as a major barrier for me. And personally as well, if I need to get to the third floor, for example, I wanted to come to this room, and the escalator, if I'm not careful, I keep tripping off the escalator. So I had to use the elevator. But if there was no elevator in place, I probably would not be able to get to this room today. It's kind of similar to how it works when it comes to the partners as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Olamide, for sharing. Same question goes to Lydia.
Thank you so much for your question. And so for me, like you mentioned, I work at IDERIN, so the Dutch National Disability Council. We're a member to European Disability Forum. And I'm also one of the two co-chairs of the European Disability Forum Youth Committee. So for me, working at IDERIN was my first job after getting sick. I'm chronically ill, and I was quite young when I was diagnosed. And then I started my job at 24. And for me, what's become super crucial in being able to do my job is the flexibility to work from home, just to make sure that if my energy is low, I can save energy, still do a little bit of work, but save, for example, the commute, because that would take a lot of energy. And also the possibility to be flexible around hospital appointments, regular checkups. So these types of accessibility provisions, for me, make a difference between being able to do a job or not being able to do a job. It's such a game changer, especially I think if you're just starting out in the first job, because if you don't get that type of provision, it gives you an entirely different impression of what work can look like. So having, especially as a first employer, so your first job, the accommodation and provisions are crucial for your experience on the labor market.
All right. Thank you, Lydia, for sharing. Of course, you talked about the issue of commuting technology, and now this takes me to Mariam. Mariam, on that, what do you need to add on?
Hello, everyone. As Ambrose said, I am Marian Emomiri. I am the CEO and co-founder at Skio, an assistive technology that enhances the safety and independence of the deaf and people with hearing loss through haptic notifications. I am a storyteller. I am also a communications officer at the United Disabled Persons of Kenya. And through this role, I work with young influencers with disabilities under the We Can Work, by Light for the World and the Enable Me programs. Lastly, I have a speech impairment and I use a text-to-speech app with my sister's voice in it. On to the question, I was once in a hotel room and I had just come out of the shower and I realized that I needed to iron my clothes. Normally, I would have to put on another dress and run to the reception and request for an iron box. But I was running late. I remembered the text-to-speech app that I was just curious about and was trying it out, and I drafted a small message and called the reception. Before calling, I kept thinking that the receiver would dismiss it as a call from a robot or someone trying to hack the system. The voice was so generic, but to my surprise, I got the iron box. For someone who speaks, this may mean nothing, but I danced when I finally got the iron box. If my happiness was put on a scale that day, the scale would crash. For me, accessibility is the end result that cannot be measured with KPIs. It is me getting things done on my own. Even though I require a sign language interpreter every now and then, it helps a lot being independent and being entrusted with opportunities such as these.
Right. Thank you, Marianne. You are emphasizing the use of technology. That's very good. And it's technology in action. That's true. Marianne is talking directly, and technology is helping to solve that issue of communication barrier. What we say, communication can enable any person to communicate and access information and also be able to understand, be able to engage. With that, I have another follow-up question to Olamide. Out of your work, working as a disability inclusion facilitator, inform us anything you are proud of in terms of impact. Please, can you be able to demonstrate what that impact is?
Okay. What I'm most proud of in terms of my work is, so over the years that I've been a disability inclusion facilitator, at every point or every time we've just had a training or concluded a training, the first thing the partners say is, wow, I've discovered things about disability and persons with disabilities in 2 hours than I have discovered in my decades on Earth. And also, I'm proud of the fact that after every training, some months after, I'm happy to see the reasonable adjustments that most partners make after having learned how to communicate with persons with disability, how to be more inclusive in their workspaces. I'm happy to see in offices where there are no ramps, they make provisions to put ramps there to make their facilities accessible for persons with disability. They also include inclusive hiring practices. There are policies created in their organizations that ensures that they also hire persons with disabilities. And there's also the part where you have to make sure there are communication tools, assistive communications, assistive technology, accessible communication tools that would help them communicate with the persons with disabilities they are bringing on board. So they will realize that intentionally, they're bringing them on board with them in mind. So I'm mostly proud of those changes and how it has opened many opportunities for them to hire more persons with disabilities. And as a result, more people have gained job opportunities. They've been able to access more opportunities in places they didn't think it existed. Thank you.
Thank you, Olamide, for highlighting that. Something you're proud of if I may again ask you, what do you require to sustain that impact?
Okay. So what would need to sustain this impact? I would like for more partners, more private entities, more organizations to embrace the DIF model. Embrace it and get to know what is missing in their organizations and what they need to be more inclusive. You realize that there's a whole demographic of people missing out on your services just because they cannot access your platforms, they cannot access your organizations. You might even have roles for persons with disabilities in your organization. However, they don't know that it exists because it's not on your website or they can't access your website. They don't know that it exists because they can't see it in your hiring practices. They don't see representation of themselves in your organizations. So I would need you to embrace the DIF model and also get to know what are the things you need to do to be full on, to become more inclusive of all persons, so you ensure that you're not leaving anyone behind in your organization.
Thank you, Olamide. Lydia, of course, you're an activist. There have been a lot of advocacy for policy change in the European, and you're a very good advocate with the OPDs. That's very important. But can you also share something you feel you're proud of also?
Yes, I will. I think you said in the beginning, Ambrose, that change can be slow, right? Change doesn't come about in one day. And I think this is really the reality of any policy work and any work that DPOs are doing. I think probably many people in the room also recognize this. Change doesn't come about in one day. It's slow, frustrating, and sometimes hard to see if it has any impacts. So there are two pictures on the screen. I'll briefly describe them and then continue with my story. So to the left, there's a group picture of a delegation of DPOs in our national parliament in the Netherlands. We're just handing over a petition with more than 18,000 signatories because our message was we ran out of patience. We no longer have the patience to wait for the changes that our government needs to make. And on the right, there's another group picture of a delegation of DPOs in Geneva. We were there in 2024 for the review of the Netherlands by the CRPD committee. And this was a very important moment for us because the committee was very critical of the Dutch government. And they wrote a very valuable report with recommendations for our government to improve the situation for persons with disabilities. So these were very impactful moments, not just in terms of policy, because the policy changes are still going to be slow, but for the people who were there and for us as a movement. I think it was very important to, in both situations, to be there together, to be there as a collective, and to be at the heart of power. And I think that's the place where we should be as people with disabilities. And it's very valuable to have that experience collectively as a group. So that's something I'm very, very proud of. And then one maybe a bit smaller scale example is a project that we're doing where I actually see a lot of similarities with the DIF approach. And we're training young people with disabilities, but also young people without disabilities, on the principles of the CRPD. So we teach them about what are your rights. And then we also work together with a debate education organization called Debat-Unie in Dutch, or Debate Union in English. And we train them in practical skills that help you to advocate for yourself and for others. So we teach them to make an argument, to present yourself, to convince others. And the sort of irony of this is that many people don't want to advocate because it's slow and frustrating. But if you're a young person with a disability, you have no other option. It's not a luxury. So you have to advocate for your own position, and many people also feel like they have to advocate for other young people in similar positions. So we, with this program, with this project, we really try to equip young people to be able to do this, because unfortunately they have to, but we really hope for a world where this is no longer necessary, but it can be a choice, a free choice.
Thank you, Lydia. And as you have said, even changing the political environment, whether Europe and Africa, we are experiencing funding program, the day program, budget cuts. What could be your call to action? What do you need to preserve that impact? Because some of us, you never know in the room, we can come to your rescue. Lydia.
I think a key sort of prerequisite to this change towards this inclusion is legislation. So this is where I come back to the sort of slow, boring, frustrating part of things. But we do need the rules to be fair, and currently they are not. So I think for meaningful, lasting change, we need accessibility to be more protected in legislation, and we need our education laws to be protecting the inclusiveness of schools better, to enforce that more. So I think the legislative change is the thing that we need most, and that will give us the best position as a collective. But it's slow.
Thank you for sharing. Marianne, the same question to you. What is one thing you're proud of?
I am a storyteller, so I have many stories. The very first time I was on a panel, I used a text-to-speech app, and I was really proud about it, and I shared it on LinkedIn. Afterwards, 2 young people reached out separately and shared that I had inspired them to consider using text-to-speech. Both of them have speech and dexterity impairments. Last year, I saw one of them in a panel, and he used a text-to-speech, and that was impact, to be able to make other people to see the importance and the role that assistive technology has in their lives, to embrace it and be able to confidently use such tools. I'm proud of that.
Olamide, any addition to that?
So how accessibility has impacted? Let's run the question. So about the work that how proud we are, why we've been proud, is that the question? So the other thing I can add is there was a time Miriam and I worked on the Show Your Full Deck campaign. We did a campaign with Life for the World under the We Can Work project, and we had to design a campaign, a double-edged campaign. I remember we had several meetings in the early mornings just so that we can get the messaging right. Also, I'm a storyteller, I'm a communications, marketing and communications person as well. And we had to work to make sure that we're communicating to persons with disabilities and also communicating to the employers who might want to get them on board. And I know that we also had to make sure that every of those things that we put out are accessible to all. I'm so proud of that particular campaign because I know several persons with disabilities were sending me messages and like, oh, do you mean I can actually put myself out there? Do you mean people are more open to bringing persons with disabilities on board now? And I'm like, go there, show your card, and the employers are the ones who bring in then play the full deck. And honestly, that's one of the projects that I've been part of, that I've been very proud of. And I look forward to more projects like that.
Thank you. Olamide, thank you, Lydia and Marianne. Just as you have said, Lydia emphasized the importance of having organizations of persons with disabilities and also empowering younger people through skilling. That's very key. It's a takeaway for us you gave us. But also excited that Olamide is also working with the UNAPID, that's an umbrella organization of persons with disabilities in Nigeria. And also, Marianne, working with the umbrella organizations of persons with disabilities in Kenya, UDPK, that's very good. And very important to see how younger people with disabilities, such OPDs are empowered, and also themselves having a disability. Because, as I said, they are leaders of today, not tomorrow. And with that, let me give a chance to you, the audience. You might be having some questions to our distinguished panelists here. Our younger leaders of today. Any question? Yes, please.
Thank you, Ambrose, and the entire panel. I wanted to know how the DIF model has been effective in the We Can Work program and how many DIFs so far have been trained.
Yes, of course, in Uganda, for the beginning, we started with 6, but as I speak now, we are in 12 countries in Africa. We have around 250 DIFs across different countries. And even others have gone through the career development. They have even changed positions. Others have become advisors. Others have become disability inclusion specialists. Even last week, someone became a deputy country director in one of the countries in Africa. That is very good. So you can imagine how they can grow. And even previously, one disability inclusion facilitator went and contested in the parliamentary elections in Uganda because the issue we are talking of inclusion, we are talking of inclusion as a campaign, how to include. So this person also had hope and contested, was elected as a member of parliament. And for this year, we're also organizing to train around 70 new young persons with disabilities DIFs. But of course, it depends on the demand which we established from the partners. Thank you. Any other question in the room? If there's no questions, let me go back to our panelists. Maybe what could be our take home?
I was just thinking about that, and something that stayed with me throughout this panel is, Marianne, how you described the joy that you felt when your this barrier that you were experiencing or that you were anticipating was removed. So it really strikes me how important it is that we do this, not just because we have the right to access to these spaces and we have the right to be leaders and decision makers, but just because it's great when you are belonging to these types of spaces. And I think that's reason enough in itself that we should be looking into these barriers and should be advancing the assistive devices, assistive technologies that we have, and we should also spread this message, I think. So this really stuck with me from the panel, and maybe one additional thought from my side is I really see a lot of times that young leaders are very much put in this sort of young leader box, right? And I think what's crucial in actually including young people with disabilities is not including them because they're young or because they have a disability, but because of what they have to offer. So my take-home message from this would also be make sure that you so for my job, for example, could have been done by anyone between like 20 years old or 80 years old, right? It could have been done by anyone with any age, but my employer chose to hire me at 24 without any relevant experience, and I'm doing the job. So if you're hiring people, take a risk, and if you're a young person looking into making a change, don't restrict yourself to specific positions for young people, but try to just do the things that you're qualified for, that you're interested in. Try and try and try again, and you belong in these spaces. I think that's the take-home message for me.
That's so good, thank you. Olamide.
Okay, in addition to what she said, and one of my most proudest achievements so far on a personal level is I used to be that child that would hide away. I used to think that because I have a disability, I would naturally make people uncomfortable. People would naturally not want to be in spaces that I am. So as a result of that, I chose to stay out of those spaces so that people can be comfortable. But then I always knew I wanted to do more. There's so much more I could do. What can I do? Where can I exist without people? And that's why I'm so very grateful for my DIF journey, because like they said, we train people, we train us into becoming experts. There's so many confidence I didn't know I had. Even though I had a lot of self-esteem, I still know that the confidence was lacking greatly. And this has helped me come out of my shell even more. Now I speak up in rooms. I don't believe I have to hide to make anyone comfortable. I just have to be myself. And it also means that after this journey, I've come to see just how much possibilities there is. This is also me saying to persons with, if I didn't have this opportunity to become a DIF, I wouldn't know that there's so many people out there who were probably like me, who thought, oh, there's actually nothing for me here in this world. Especially in my country, there is a lot of accessibility lacking. And there are so many lack of physical infrastructures and access to opportunities for persons with disabilities. So there's a box that you already put in just from being from my country. However, this has helped me show what is possible to other persons like me who thought, oh, we need to hide. People see me and they believe, oh, if you can get here, if you can do this, then I certainly have a chance to do the same. They're more inclined to put themselves out there. They're more inclined to show the world what is possible just because they've seen the representation of what is actually possible. So I'm going to say, put it out there that do not assume people cannot work just because you think they can't. Give them the opportunity and then see what they make of it. Provide opportunity, make your opportunities more open and accessible to persons with disabilities. Give room for the DIF model to come in and help you shape up inclusion in your workspaces and in your organizations. Thank you.
Yes, Marianne.
My takeaway from this session is that young persons with disabilities are able to be the change. As my fellow panelists have noted, we need to be more deliberate in our inclusion efforts. From the policies we make to strategies, we must ensure that persons with disabilities have a voice in them.
Good. Thank you very, very much. Entirely agree in the room. We need to empower younger people with disabilities and also to support systems and processes to be disability inclusive. Of course, we have worked with many young people with disabilities, and there's a lot we have learned from them as DIFs. What we have learned is when we make a program disability inclusive by design, the processes become very easy and the work goes on smoothly. When a DIF comes to support a program which was not disability inclusive by design, is really not as easy. And many partners always inform us. They say the program are disability inclusive, but when it comes to budgeting, there is no budget for reasonable accommodation and many other costs. And hence, such ongoing program become challenging. That's why many of us in the room, our colleagues, working companies, organizations, please, it's very important to make disability inclusion from the beginning, from the design of the program or the project. Just as Olamide suggested or requested, we are available, right for the world, to support and collaborate and support you. If you are so much interested in the DIF model, we can have this engagement, have this talk to see if we can support to make the program or organization disability inclusive, but at the same time, we will be empowering younger people with disabilities. As you are much aware, the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, what does it say? Leave no one behind. Now we are remaining 4 years to the end of the SDG. SDG is almost come to an end, but the biggest question is, have we achieved that vision of not leaving anyone behind? Yet, we realize there are so many challenges. It's upon us. Let's try as much as possible to reduce on that gap. Allow me, unless there's a burning question in the room. Is there any question in the room? I saw someone raising the hand. Maybe I can give a chance.
Thank you very much. It's very inspiring listening to you. I wanted to ask something on, because Ambrose was mentioning you are active as DIFs, or Lydia, you are active as an advocate, but you're also connected, we're all connected to organizations of persons with disabilities. And I wanted to ask how much space is there for you as women to shape the agenda of these organizations? Because I think it really needs both. It's very impressive and important that you as role models show what is possible and share your lived experience. And I guess you also need the strength and the power of organizations of persons with disabilities behind you. And therefore, I would really like to ask what your space looks like, especially as women, and what can be done to also give women a strong role in these organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Lucy. I work with Life for the World, but I would like to direct the question probably to the panelist or the facilitator in terms of the sustainability of the DIF model. If you could just highlight how we bring it to scale, from a program perspective to a more sustained and system process. If you might highlight that, thank you.
Lydia, there's a question which was asked. Yes.
Yeah, I think I'll focus on the first question, since I I'm not closely involved with the DIF approach, so I'll leave that to the other panelists. But I think it's an excellent question. How do you make sure that these spaces are equally accessible for women as they are for men, and also for people with other genders, right? So for me personally, what really helps, this is a very practical example, but I think it is maybe more telling than any more abstract story I would tell here. So I have some colleagues who are older than me and who are, for example, a male colleague in his 60s, who very, very deliberately is an ally to women in our organization. And there are several of them. And what they do is they enhance the voices of for example, of me. So when I'm in a meeting, someone is speaking over me or someone is ignoring my idea, something that has happened to all women probably in this room, right? They would deliberately say, I think Lydia just said this and this, and I think it might be an excellent idea, or we should explore it further. And even if it doesn't happen, but just the idea that there's someone in the room there who will speak up for you, or who will create space for you, that's essentially what they are doing, is so encouraging, and it makes me feel more empowered to take up space. So I think having allies, especially having privileged allies, right? Having these white, male, older people who are deliberately making space for people with more marginalized voices, that's amazing. And I'm so thankful for every single one of my colleagues who has taken on that role for me. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Lydia. And to the last question from Lucy about the sustainability of the DIF approach. Indeed, that's a very good and interesting question. Even partners ask the same question about the sustainability aspect of it. Importantly is that our design of the DIF approach is work hand in hand with organizations or persons with disabilities. The DIF, these younger people, are identified through the OPDs. And hence, these are their mother organizations. Take an example, Olamide is a member of UNAPID, Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities Nigeria. In fact, without our collaboration with the UNAPID, probably wouldn't be having Olamide here. And when it comes to contracting, Olamide is also one of, like, an expert advisor within the MasterCard Foundation in Nigeria. Therefore, they reach out to her, and hence, even getting her to fly this site wasn't easy. Her schedules were tight to come here because she's very busy. So, our design is about partnering with other organizations like OPD. Another approach to sustain is aligning our approach to the partners, like Help Plan International in our situation. We also design DIF, and also at times we identify DIF from the program participants from those organizations. In case they have them, we train them, and hence they become DIF. The same way they have champions of change. Other organizations have those models. If they have 50 champions of change, that's where we can identify those younger people. We train them to become DIF within their organizations. That's another sustainability mechanism. Thank you. So, I realize time is not on our side. There's a lot of things to share. But allow me to say thank you, the entire team. Please join me to thank these panels in sign language. Thank you very much. And also, to thank yourself for availing yourself to be part. You clap in sign language, you say, I am good. You praise, you sign in sign language and say, I am good. So please enjoy your evening, and also, in case you're around, feel free to interact with these panelists at an appropriate time. About the DIF model, you also need it in your organization. Thank you. Let us end the session here.